All right. Welcome, everybody, today. Got another great conversation with Grant and Andrew Ekstrom from Succurri. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Tony.
Today is going to be an interesting conversation because this is a topic that everybody's talking about, trying, experimenting with, and that's implementing AI in your business. And what we thought we'd do is talk a little bit about what it takes to lead that. Succurri does a bunch of stuff for businesses. Obviously, IT and cybersecurity excellence is their hallmark. But today we're going to talk about some AI implementation and what it takes to lead your company. We've got a YouTube channel out there that we put out content every month. Go ahead and scan this and go to YouTube on your phone and go ahead and subscribe. And then if you hit that little bell, it'll tell you, on your phone when we publish a new piece of content. What I love about what you guys do is there's no selling. It's just here's how businesses leverage technology of all different types, because that's what you guys do. So please go check that out. Grant and Andrew, tons of video out there. It's great information.
Yeah, if I was to pitch that YouTube library, which has grown significantly over the last few years, Grant and I bring 25 years of IT experience each to those conversations. We sit at the edge of what the IT industry is doing, how IT is being used in business. Ultimately, if someone was to pay us for that library of all that consulting, the deep dives we do, it'd be like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of consulting value. If you do go to that YouTube site, it's a real value for companies. Yes, they're long format videos, so you do have to kind of sit through it. But if you have a lot, drive in the morning, Grant and I go through all kinds of strategy and how to optimize your investment in IT so that it's not an expense. It's a return. You actually get a return on that investment. So yeah, if you like it and want to support us, we love the subscriptions and the likes.
Well, I call it the master class for business ownership and understanding how IT management works. So it's been very, very effective in conversations, through the years of being able to point back business owners to it and saying, "Hey, we just did a topic on that. Check it out." And I've had so many compliments come back and saying, "Man, if somebody could just put it to me this cleanly before, I wouldn't be asking the questions." So definitely check it out.
Yeah.
That's our
Um,
pitch. Our pitch is done.
Shameless plug. No, it's
Yeah.
good. You're well worth it. You're so right on. And they'll get the viewers will get another experience here when we go through this topic. So really, you know, I remember when CRMs came out, customer relations management is a piece of software, big piece of technology. And everybody said, "Oh, you got to have, it's going to change the world. And it's going to do this, that, and the other." But the fact of the matter is, it's such a big thing. And same with AI, right? And implementing new technology in your business, the buzzword is digital transformation. How do you use that technology to transform how your business operates? So we're going to talk a little bit about that, a little bit about what are the critical pieces of getting yourself ready to implement AI? A lot of people are experimenting out there. So we'll go through that. And then we'll give you a nice, succinct framework to start to implement this in your business. Um, so let's talk about this mind shift, Andrew. When you think about what's going on with AI, people are going to have to use it. They're already starting to use it. How should they be thinking about it?
Well, AI is definitely not going away. And I see a lot in the news about the AI bubble. And I think it's just really important to highlight that the AI bubble relates to like stock market and like real estate or not real estate, but investment in in new AI startup companies. So it's the AI gold rush from a financial standpoint, but from a technological and an implementation standpoint, AI isn't going anywhere. It is embedded in already in our technology framework, in our like technology fabric. and it's going to continue to become something really critical. And so every business is going to need to have an AI strategy. So what we talk about is not the exciting CNBC news of, this company made billions or whatever. This is how AI can actually be used in your business and can help you, transform your business incrementally and get real value from it.
So talk to me about what that value is.
Yeah. So, what we're seeing right now emerge is as AI has different levels of maturity, and we'll go over some of those here in a second. But what we're seeing emerge right now is AI, for the first time in history, is giving executives and like manager level or like high value asset level, a bit like employees of those that really valuable knowledge, the ability to take that knowledge, put it into AI, and then have AI use that knowledge to educate other people, to inform team members in those companies. And so it really is extending the ability to get a lot of value out of your investment in your executives and your high dollar value employees. So the executives can take that knowledge and or leaders, and instead of it being something where they have 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, or heaven forbid they're getting you questions 12 hours a day, now the AI can answer those questions 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, potentially simultaneously from multiple people at the same time. Those people are getting the same quality of answer, and it has the appropriate on-brand messaging for their company. And so what you have an executive, let's say that's a 100,000 or $200,000 a year executive. Well, they only have 24 hours in a day, no matter how much you squeeze them. But if you can take AI and you can have what they're able to do for their staff be 3 or 4 times more, well, now you're getting 400 or $800,000 of return on that investment in AI. So that starts to become a really compelling thing right off the bat. Um, Oftentimes what we see from this, or what we're seeing emerge from this, is staff are making better decisions. I talked about that on-brand messaging when they talk with their customers. So the customers are receiving a more consistent experience. You have less time spent with staff, like chasing down information, finding information, relearning things. And then, ultimately the speed of what that staff can serve your customer speeds up, because now they're able to accurately provide the information right away, or the AI is doing it itself. So it's not like, we're not into fantasy land anymore. Like, these things are happening, and we're starting to find real, transformative value from AI.
Grant, what's been your experience with AI in terms of what Andrew's saying in value? What's your take on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think honestly, training, when you're dealing with new staff that, your learning curve sometimes is 6 months, sometimes a year to really get some true value out of an employee, and being able to have that knowledge that's replicatable for every trainee that comes on board. I've seen some significant advances just with the sales and marketing teams, being able to onboard them. So it used to be I'd figure 90 days and I'd start to see some value out of some sales side of staff, and I'm seeing value with under a month. So I cut that time in a third, but with just utilizing some of the AI technology to continue to keep the message very consistent. The content that's being created is something that I would be creating as part of our process, and it continues to spit it out. So, like, once again, the staff can ask the AI questions without having to wait for me to respond. So significant time that's been saved there.
And I think it's important, like that's a great use case. Like, so let's just extrapolate that for a second. So in that use case, if you had two employees saving 2 months of training, that's basically like $20,000 of hard cost, if not more, because you have benefits and such. So that's $20,000 of hard cost that we saved. In addition to that, now those salespeople have 2 extra months each to sell to new customers. And so, like, how much new revenue can we potentially generate? So, like for Succurri, we look for customers that are $2,000 a month commitments. So that's potentially like another $4,000 of new revenue, right? So we saved $20,000 of cost. We made $4,000 of net new revenue. Like that's a pretty significant, return on investment for what Grant I know you put time into it, but I'm pretty sure you haven't put $24,000 worth of time into that investment.
No, not even close. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
So
say I probably spent, maybe a total of 8 hours, an equivalent to a day going through the process and just, I think that the key is this is probably more conversation for a little bit later today, but it's the knowledge, right? Being able to have the tools to train the AI agent is the key, right? And so since I had most of that already, I had the ability to get that up and going pretty quickly, but there were a lot of gaps that I didn't have that I used AI to actually develop the content to then turn around and train the AI agent with it. So I'm sure we'll talk about that here in a little bit, though.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is just like training another human being, there's a process and a methodology and a framework you can use to train your AI. And we'll go into that a little bit. Um, so there's another piece of it, and we kind of, when we were planning this out, we were thinking about like what's okay. So there's training, you can save costs there, but the knowledge base, we called it, speed to leadership. It was what kind of came out of it. It's like how fast can you get this information and knowledge to people in different parts of the business. Marketing and sales is a part. Andrew, talk to me about this transformation with specifically with AI that you've kind of put together here.
yeah, so it happens at multiple layers. And I think the most important thing, Grant will talk about this too, is AI doesn't have to like solve every problem to provide value. And really what we're guiding our customers is make sure you're getting value at every layer of the AI, knowledge stack. So the slide here says AI is transforming how decisions are made. And that's 100% true, right? So if you use AI and you have it come through, like in our case, it's our service ticket system, it can find some really powerful information and help, like high level owners and decision makers navigate those choices, right? So now we're making informed decisions, and maybe that's a decision that saves us $100,000, and or we're making a decision that's more focused, and so we're making higher value, higher profit outcomes. But I would say that's like a really high level, right? That requires integrations, and it requires an IT company like Succurri to take care of. What we're finding though is if you can distill down the knowledge to how does it help individuals do their day-to-day job, right? And so if we talk about it from a knowledge standpoint, it's making sure that we have processes, procedures, training materials documented. And AI can really help with that because it's if you show it a recording of how to do something, it really quickly learns how, and it can create a standard operating procedure. So that's one really quick way. And those technologies are available today. All you have to do is just go buy it and start to learn how to do it. What we're finding though is as we've matured through that phase, is we're recognizing we can actually get our higher level leaders to be like basically process driven through the fact that they're creating AIs for the jobs they're doing. And so then they're helping their team members. And so now that expands their capabilities. And so the leaders that we're working off of clarity because we're working from now documented processes. And that's a critical thing for AI. AI does really, really well when you've defined what the best practice is. It won't do really well if you don't have a best practice. And so that's a lot of where the clarity we're seeing is AI to get the value from AI so you can leverage your business, leverage your people, scale your business, is you can no longer have the luxury of chaos. And we're seeing this at Succurri, even like we're entering a phase of potential hyper growth here shortly with AI fueling that. And we're turning on these systems, we're seeing where our fabric is stretching and ripping, or there's squeaky parts of the machinery that we have every single time we come back to it, it's because we lack a process, we lack a structured training material, we lack a training process, And once we have those all fixed, all of a sudden the clarity for not only leaders but staff just becomes great, and we find everyone comes in alignment. So we talk about like this is a lot of different things here, but ultimately, what I would suggest for any company at the moment is it's time to start leveraging the power of AI to to make your knowledge and your organization work for you, and then to show you where you have gaps. And AI can do it really fast, especially scopes. Standard operating procedures are the big one that everyone talks about.
So Grant, when you hear Andrew talk about that, are you hearing him say, and maybe this is just me, but basically, if you have a structured way to implement AI, you get a spot where you have chaos in your business. Is that what he's saying?
Yes, I mean if you're running up against walls of like how to implement it, there's probably chaos in the business, right? And so to train AI, you have to have knowledge, specifically written knowledge and process of how you're doing things. And I have this conversation really often with business owners. I'm like, so let's talk about how you're doing things. You know, is it knowledge that's being passed down from generation of employees, or is there something that's really well documented and it's performed the same way every single time with predictable outcomes? And the answer I always get back is somewhere in between, right? There is some employee in the process that knows how to do something specifically that is probably not replicatable at that point. And so that's where you have to kind of fill those gaps in to make AI that really powerful tool. And you can use AI to help build, like if you don't have any processes at all, ask AI to build you some processes and then start working through it, right? And saying, okay, now I've got some framework. Now I have to, oh, okay, here's some spots I need to fill in. But it's pretty good at helping you even with the starting process of building that process. I feel like this is gonna be a drinking game if we talk about AI and process all day long. So,
Yeah. Well,
Drink when you have SOP. If you hear SOP, drink when you.
but
well,
but this conversation happens a lot, right? And so I know that companies that are in that mid SMB starting to get into that mid size are all struggling with this because the answer is always I'm somewhere in between or I have nothing at all. And I get the question all the time about, well, how do I even start with AI? Where do I, what's the first step? And it goes back to what are those little repetitive pain points that you have? Like maybe it's accounting that's having to go through and move, numbers in Excel spreadsheets from, one spot to another, and they have to do it every single week, or they're moving data from one place to another, and it just takes a lot of time. That's a good place to start. Or maybe there's a repetitive HR task, maybe like onboarding new employees, things like that. That's
yeah.
another great spot where you're able to utilize and get some really quick wins, right? And then after you start getting some of those quick wins, you've already received value for the investment. And then you can start thinking a little bit bigger. Don't go out and say, I'm going to buy hundreds of thousands of dollars in processing power because we're going to do this grandiose AI project, and then it falls flat, right? That we have a very consistent message in our webinars: crawl before you walk, walk before you run, and then you'll really get the value out of the investment.
Yeah, it's almost like when we put this up, data, knowledge, automation, those three things. Where's the data at? Who has the knowledge? And before you even get to like, well, how do we automate all this stuff? And I think it's worth mentioning this transformation, they're already starting to see, you know, I know in our business, in early days, we're kind of early adopters of technology. If your business out there is an early adopter of technology, or you have people like that in your organization, that's where the chaos starts, right? All these people out there jumping around trying AI. Let's do it this way. Let's do it that way. Talk to me about the pitfalls of kind of new technology implementing this, like AI.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a
So
question for Andrew.
Probably
yeah, so
both
I
of us.
can I can jump into that one.
Yeah.
Um, so ultimately, like we talked about this kind of briefly earlier, is when you're looking at AI needs to have clarity to be successful. And so it automatically brings to the surface everything in your business that is not clarity, right? And you ask Grant this question, like, so if you implement AI, you're going to have chaos, right? Well, no, AI just is the mirror that reflects your chaos back at you and helps you see it. One of the things too that I think we're going to see as well emerge, I think AI is going to be a mirror for businesses outside of their zone of excellence, right? Oftentimes, those really trick little knowledge things that like one person has probably don't produce a lot of value in your company, and so ultimately there's no value they should not be something that continues to be propagated. But let's talk about how AI and digital transformations can fail. So like I said, first off, as a leader, you have to have clarity in your organization. You have to have documents, you have to have processes, you have to have procedures, all of those things. It is now time to invest in them, and I think it's so critical for this because like Succurri, which is a pretty organized company, we have those problems. We are fixing them today. We recognize that we can't leverage the scaling power of AI without fixing that chaos. And so if you choose as a business owner that you're like, oh, well, that's a lot of work and I don't have time for that, that's okay because your competitor is going to do it with our help and then you're going to go out of business. So, I hope you have a good backup plan. This is not really something you have a choice for anymore. It is time to fix all these little, doodads and things that you swept under the carpet because AI will help you get past those and help you scale your company. So first off, as a leader, we must create clarity. Tools before strategies. What this basically means is, and I call it shiny object syndrome. So you see the tool, you hear its capabilities, and you get really excited. Like on this call, hopefully we excite you about AI and you're like, oh, I want that. But ultimately, you need to have the strategy as far as how you get the value out of that tool. So if you're implementing it, you should have a strategy of what are my expectations? What are my end goals? Does this tool do those things? Yes, it's work ahead of time, but a little bit of preparation prevents a lot of perspiration at the end. And I know it's not exactly how that phrase goes, but that's what I always think of. Um, ultimately, if there is not clear leadership in an organization, or you don't have clear governance on how you're doing things, what happens is AI will sprout up just naturally throughout your organization. And that's as problematic as having no AI in itself. It's probably even more dangerous. And so that's where, like, if you have applications or AI in your organization that you don't have control of at an ownership level or a leadership level, we call that shadow IT. It means that you have technology that's working in a way that you don't know what it's going to be doing. You could have rogue AI being used to, your employees might be feeding it data that's not malicious in intent, but you might be giving very valuable data up to the large language model, right? And could be accessible elsewhere. So there are some thoughts here you have to be careful of. And then the one-off automation heroes. It's funny because I saw a lot of this in my early career in early, like 25 years ago, when office computers, like PCs were actually going into offices. That was like the big push in my early career. And you'd have really smart people who would automate like Microsoft Access, which is a database program, or Excel or Word. And they build these cool little things that generated actually real value that day. And that person would move on. And then that program would break, and there'd be no one who could support it. And then the business would lose that value and that really cool advantage they had because they were allowing their like staff who are not actually professional developers to write these one-off automations. And so at Succurri, we have a sister company called MSP Interfaces. And we literally, one of our lines of business is to take on these abandoned and orphaned programs that are really business critical, modernize them, bring them back to life. So it's funny to see the cycle happening again. So as AI is now emerging and is in its infancy, there's a whole industry, or not industry, but there's a whole generation of tinkerers who are now building AI automation, and they're going to do the same thing over again. So your business will be dependent on that AI, and then that person will leave or lose interest, and you will now lose control of this like competitive advantage you have with that automation. And so, long story short, my suggestion is um, only do these little fun automations in your initial assessment phases. When you're getting into your production phase, you should be working with a professional company for any automations so that you know that you can continue to own that, either that intellectual property, or that you can continue to make sure those programs are work and supported over time. So, yeah, so don't do that.
So I'll take on the last two, even though Andrew talked about them a little bit, but I'm going to put my security hat on. So the shadow IT, the rogue AI use. So that one is extremely scary because, like Andrew pointed out, your data might be going to the cloud, it might be sensitive, but it can be used for all sorts of different things. So if you have somebody using Chat GTP over here and Copilot over here and the laundry list of all the other tools that are out there, one, your data becomes disparate. It's completely separated. You have no control over where your things sit. And now, from an ownership perspective, those little tools that your employees are building that is probably supposed to be for value, right? Like Andrew said, those will disappear over time. And ultimately, there's no governance of where your intellectual property, maybe financial information. The favorite one is that people uploading their P&L and hey, analyze the P&L for me, and they have no idea where the data is actually going or who can see it after that.
Right.
And so you need to have some level of governance over what tools, like you have to make a decision as an owner and saying, okay, we're going to use this tool for this group. And that is the only tool that can be done. And it's from not like, hey, I've got my own account over here and I've got my own account over here. You have to have that corporate account. So the company owns that data, owns the control over those processes, because otherwise all the time that your employees are spending putting these things together is literally going to evaporate. And so that from the security perspective, just that one freaks me out the most. The one-off heroes, the fragile processes. So just so everybody knows on this call, like you can actually have AI write code for you. So the little one-off automations that Andrew and I grew up with in our early careers were batch files and some scripts and things like that.
Yeah.
AI has taken that and multiplied it by 100. Like they are able to develop applications that are fully functional, and not saying that that's not great, uh, but you have no idea. Like if you don't write code yourself and don't follow some of the best practices, you have no idea what sort of security holes are there. So now you like, hey, this tool is great, and I'm going to use it to operate my business, and I'm going to put this up as a web page. And then all of a sudden, there's a security hole in it. Nobody knows about it. No way to patch it. And all of a sudden, now you've got a company-ending event because somebody without the experience used AI to write code, and poof. So
Yeah.
back to the original comment of like, if you're going to go down that process, definitely engage with professionals that know what code is supposed to look like. Not saying that code isn't like, I think code is going to be written mostly by AI, but there's got to be a human being that knows what it's supposed to look like and could go back and fix it. Just like my part of my sales process is right when I'm creating collateral. Yeah, AI is going to throw together some of it, but I'm still going to go back and review it and make some tweaks here and there. That is always going to be the case.
The one thing that sticks out to me when you guys both talk about this, we've had conversations because we've done other webinars on AI and automation and things like that, and security and how it all mixes together. And um, the one word that sticks out here is governance. But really, what that should say maybe is culture, because what leadership sets is the standard for the culture inside the business and how technology like AI is leveraged. And you kind of have these pace setters that if the culture says, "Hey, it's a free for all," or if the culture says, "We don't care about security," or we just look at things from a cost standpoint, what we're really doing is investing in this culture of how do we leverage technology, and this is a real powerful one. Do you think that's fair to say? Is that a fair kind of assessment of what you guys are talking about?
Absolutely, right? Like, I made the comment. I'm like, and this is obviously, if my team's listening, no, this is no slam on them, but there's a reason why we're not just giving everybody licenses to AI to go play with it, right? Um, Andrew and I are having that strategy from a higher level, like, hey, this is how we see, this is where we see AI being beneficial to our business. um, and we're not saying from a governance or from a culture perspective, we are embracing the technology, but by no means are we saying, hey, this is a free for all and do what you want and figure out the best case scenario of how this is going to work. We have a very select team of people that are that have been doing this for a long time and are seeing how we can implement AI into our business processes. But yeah, you have to have that top down. No, this is the way it's going to go because this is our business and this is how we feel that's going to be implemented.
Yeah. So let's talk about how to get ready. What does it mean to be ready to implement this stuff, or what's the stepping stones to get ready? Andrew, can you walk us through some of this? You were bringing this up a little bit earlier. You mentioned, data inside your service tickets, right? Being able to go through data. That's just like the stepping stone. Walk me through the thought process of getting ready to implement AI in your business.
Yeah, so I'm coming this AI readiness document will come like if you're a fairly mature company and you have some sort of business system, like you have a CRM for tracking customers, or you have an ERP for manufacturing, or electronic medical record system, right? Every business that hits a certain level of maturity has some sort of computer program that helps them run their business, and ultimately it's where they store all their data. So the first thing I would tell you is, if you are not storing your information in that central place, you should probably pivot and start doing that, because that's a critical step for you to have AI really be very, very valuable. Like for us, we have over 1 million service tickets in our ticketing processing system, which basically records everything we've done for customers in the last 10 years. That's a powerful repository of knowledge to draw from, because the AI is going to see all the standards, it's going to see all the edge cases. So if you don't have clean data, that's the first place to start. And companies like Succurri can help you with that design. Clear processes. If you have not documented the process on a piece of paper or electronically, no one else is going to do it as well as you. And as a leader, we oftentimes know what the best practice is for that process. Grant and I often say in IT, there are 10 ways to do something, and there's only one way to do it really right, right? Because every other way, not 1 through 9 ways have various consequences, which you may not see, because that consequence on number 5 might take 5 years to develop, right? But when you have a breadth of knowledge and you're at the top of your career like Grant and I are, and you have time on your side, you know what the best process looks like, and you know that there's really only one way of doing it. So my suggestion is, as a leader, commit the time to start creating those clear processes and write stuff down. Once it's written down, you can now train your teams. And this is where you start to really get leverage, and you can really start to scale your business. And we saw actually Succurri had a pivot point. So Grant and I were the primary engineers, and it would almost every service ticket would require our involvement at some level, right? So all of a sudden, Grant and I were burdened by the administrative debt of all of our technicians needing to talk to us. And what we realized is they didn't know how to do these various tasks the way we wanted them to do. So what I actually did is, for a whole year, not like full time, but as time permitted, I created processes. I created training videos because it was quick and easy. And we created this library, and then we created a training curriculum for staff, and we had them start watching it. And all of a sudden, one, they were calling us a lot less. So Grant and I had a lot more time. They were doing the work a lot more effectively, and they felt a lot better, and there was a less burnout because they felt comfortable in their skill set. And then as we grew, we were able to leverage that training library to get new employees to come in faster and more accurately, just like Grant was talking about for the sales team. And so you can only do that though when you've defined what the process is. Um, you know, The next step, you need to secure your systems. I highly recommend you talk with a professional security firm. Like Succurri does this. We do penetration testing. We do, code sourcing, like code checking. But ultimately, you want to make sure that whatever you've built has been stress tested, that it's not something that's an egg that can be cracked really quickly. Document your workflows. Oh man, like we're going through this right now with our software. So Grant, being our security specialist, he said, "Hey, we have an audit coming up. We need to have a written document for every single program we have and how it interacts with other systems." And I'm like, okay, there's a fair amount of those. Well, we're at number 200 and counting of programs that are running around our organization that are helping, and so I think we're in like month 1.5 of one of our team members being almost full time at this. So, documentation of your workflows is so critical. I'll tell you, it's easier to do it while you're building systems. It's a lot harder to go back and figure it out later, or you have to commit significant resources. I had a customer, or I have a customer that I gave some guidance on this, and I told, because they're entering the world of like custom automation themselves, and they're building lots of little programs that are undocumented and uncontrolled. And I said, at some point, that's going to strangle you guys, and you're going to have to come back and fix this, and it's going to be really expensive and really painful. And they're like going to hopefully start making the right changes. And then the last one is your compliance guardrails. So I would say, compliance is the document or the strategy that guides security. It's also the security guide rail or guardrails you put around it. But like Grant talked about, we're have a huge AI initiative that we're planning right now in our organization, and we're going through and we're making sure that it's only coming from official channels. The AI is going to be tailored to have the outputs that the company wants. And we're not allowing just random AI to exist in our computer network because of all the reasons Grant mentioned earlier. And so, yes, we recognize that there's time spent on that. It's not as creative or as flexible, but we were already through that stage, right? The creative and flexible stage is when you have Chat GPT on your phone and it tells you what to order for dinner, or it tells you what your grocery list is, or makes a workout plan. Like, that's when you're having fun with it. As soon as it comes into the business, it's time to start having strategy. So that would be the thoughts I would have for AI readiness.
Now, if I think about any business out there, it could be like, a civil engineering firm, it could be an architect, it could be a construction company. Basically, there are, let's call it, I don't know, 5 areas, right? There's sales and marketing. There's, let's call it operations or production, whatever, operations. There's finance, and then there's kind of company leadership. Everything underneath of that is like, well, what are the systems you use in each of those pieces of your business?
Yeah.
This is AI ready, or it sounds like it's coming out like this is AI readiness for your company, but really you could just be, and this is just my interpretation of what you said, Andrew, you could just be, let's get AI readiness in operations.
Yeah. And
You,
I 100% agree with that. And I actually would start out small. And you'll get this as a theme from Grant and I, like, start out small, get your value. Operations is a fairly big nut to crack from an AI and procedure process standpoint. Marketing and sales, we're seeing that that's like where automation is really flourishing right now, and AI is really flourishing. So I would start there. You can actually documentation, like AI is great at creating standard operating procedures, so you can do some training. Those would be the two places I would start, but you certainly do not have to do this across your whole company. I wouldn't do it across your whole company. You will probably stumble and fail, or you're going to have a couple of misfires before you finally get it under control. But if you do it in one department and you figure out how it works, it's way easier to roll it out to each department after that.
if I had a dollar bill for every time I heard Grant say crawl, walk, run, I would be a rich
Yeah.
man. But that is
Another
what
drinking
you
game.
guys, I mean, that's the discipline, right? That's the of implementing technology, whether it's AI or making changes in security or whatever, right?
Well, and that's the funny part about, so, we're talking about AI readiness, but this process is actually what you'd use for any new system, right? This isn't new in how to implement something. Like, you always want to have clean data when you're implementing a new system. You want to have a clear process of how you're going to accomplish your goals. You need to have your team that's trained, secure the systems, document workflows, and then compliance guardrails. So we're not reinventing the wheel here, right? This is something that's been used to implement systems for years and years and years. It just happens to be that it continues to work in an AI environment. Obviously the compliance guardrails, that one in other systems may be less impactful than when it comes to AI, because AI can get out of control really quickly. Uh, you know, it, there are a lot of tools out there to help with that. Like NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, has a already predefined framework for risk management when it comes to AI. If you are not interested in reading stereo instructions for the next 6 months, give us a call. We'll help you through that process. It's a little dry in material, but there are resources out there to help you through understanding the risks associated with it and safely implementing the technology.
Yeah. And I would say, the importance of that can't be overstated. So like you wouldn't build a house with concrete and rebar that has flaws, right? Because the cost to go repair that is astronomical later. It's the same thing with AI. We're now getting to the level of maturity where there are companies like Succurri that have, expertise in this field, can help navigate it. So don't build the foundation of your AI strategy on bad concrete and cheap rebar, because the cost to come back and fix it by a professionals like us is way more expensive than just starting from scratch.
Yeah. When I hear you guys talk, and I've been in on calls and in meetings, and um, I always love the fact that you guys come back to, well, what does the business need? What are we trying to do here? What's the objective? And AI is no different than that. What are we trying to do? How do we make sure that we value what we're investing in and we get a return on what we're investing in? And you
Yeah.
guys always bring it back to business value, which I love, um, being a business owner myself. So maybe, I mean, ultimately, what we want to do is we want to get to a place where people can take simple steps. This is a big roadmap. I don't know if you want to go through all of this, Andrew, or maybe point out some things here. I do want to leave time for questions, but also want to give you the floor in terms of what are the keys to this roadmap.
Yeah, I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but so define your objective, your AI objectives. So this is really where you should start to do dreaming and visioning and goal setting. You should be spending time, like if you're thinking, you're listening to this conversation, you're like, wow, I feel really left behind. It's not late. You're not too late. You'll never be too late, right? It's just a learning curve. So today, though, everybody should have Chat GPT or Copilot. You should be using it on a daily basis to ask it questions, have you help write emails. You should be having it used to, create your grocery list, do your workout plan, whatever it is. Start to learn what it does until the point that you get to tell you that you have the realization of like, oh my gosh, this thing is really powerful. I wonder what else it does. And when you hit that point, you're ready to move to the next phase, which is then your knowledge acquisition really speeds up. But you start to figure out like what specific AI platforms can do and their special skill sets. So first off, it's not on this list, but it's really start to educate yourself and become aware of AI's capabilities. Once you do that, you should, after you've built up enough of a capabilities knowledge base for yourself, you're going to start to see easily translated functions in your business that AI can take care of, right? And so at that point, then you really should be starting to get that, you should do your AI goals and your outcomes. Now, in that roadmap, it showed calculate your costs and ROI at the bottom. That's not, it should be number two. So we should tweak this thing a little bit. You should not, with an AI investment, AI should never be a cost. If it's a cost, you should just stop using it. It should be an investment. And so the second part, after you figured out the problems you can solve in your business, then figure out the ROI. And Succurri is actually going through this right now. I had a meeting right before this call we're discussing and planning a fairly significant AI initiative for our internal use, where it will extend the ability of our leadership and our ownership to have, a farther reach for our staff, have better consistent outcomes. And the team member who's working on this with me, the second phase of the proposal is the return on investment. And so we were talking about the use cases. And when we started, we had like one or two in mind. By the time we were done, we had 10. And then we started tying people to those use cases, like who would save time or get value or would be able to extend what they do and have leverage. And all of a sudden, we're tying then, hours or minutes saved on transactions per day. And then we're associating their salary to that. And so before you know it, like you have a pretty compelling use case. You're like, wow, I can do like 10 really solid functions today, and I'm going to save or generate more capacity. I'm going to save money or generate more capacity for new sales in like double or triple what my investment is. Cool. Now I've got a goalpost to help drive me to getting through that AI process. I don't have the spreadsheet yet, but I'm very excited to get it and see what our projected return on AI investment will be.
So
So
what
Tony,
you're
this
saying
is
is, oh, go ahead, Grant.
I was gonna say this is his sales pitch on how he's going to spend a lot of money here shortly. So he's priming me.
Yeah.
But
But
you're really saying, does it save us time? If it does, what's that time worth?
Yeah.
Is it a revenue driver? If it is, what's the potential of that revenue that it can drive?
Yeah.
Maybe it's make us faster with fewer mistakes in a process. Well, does that save time? Does it, so what you're really doing is having a framework for how you define the value of what's going on in your business in the different places, different
Yeah.
processes with different people, and defining a value to that.
Yeah.
If you know
Well,
what AI is capable of, what you're saying then is you could say, oh, well, here's some processes that we could leverage AI on. What are the value of those to us if we were successfully able to implement AI
yeah.
in that?
Eh,
And
eh,
therefore, you can get an estimated return on that investment.
yeah.
Versus maybe there are other areas we're not ready to implement AI on, and here's why. Because we don't
Yeah.
have clarity on the process, or we don't, is that kind of the
Yeah.
picture?
Don't beat your head against a rock you can't move, right? So,
Right.
that's so if you have a
Or don't beat
department,
your head against the rock. 'Cause
yeah, I mean, or like move the rock.
even
So
if you
if
can move it.
yeah, so if you have a department that isn't ready, then don't. But I will tell you, so I think we had our first like AI strategy in business session probably about a year ago, and that's really when AI caught fire, right? And from the media standpoint, what has happened in a year is just it's amazing. I've never seen technology move this fast in my life, and I've been in through like a really fast moving part of the technology curve. So a year ago, everyone's like, "Oh, the Terminator and like AI is going to take over all our jobs," and I'm like, that's kind of science fictiony. A year later, I'm not seeing the Terminator yet, but the technology exists, so we all need to be careful. As far as AI taking over jobs, I don't think it's going to take over jobs, but I can guarantee you the businesses that use AI are going to hire fewer people but grow their businesses. And that's really what Succurri is doing. Like I can now see with as AI has evolved that if you're in the knowledge worker business, like if you're in a knowledge business like IT, law, accounting, any business where you move information around, every single job function that is related to data collection or data manipulation, it's going to be augmented by AI. So you're probably going to have a person who's still like in charge of it all, but AI is going to do the heavy lifting and the bulk of the work, right? We're going to have AI sweatshops. So, so ultimately, like for us, what we're building in this AI initiative is that I don't have to hire my next technician because I know a year after programming my AI with best practices, it's going to be able to answer questions like a tier one technician. And year two, it's going to be hooked up to our process automation system and be able to do some work. And if I'm seeing like very clear path to that in my business, it's got to exist in other businesses. So ultimately, I don't think AI is going to prevent us from having jobs, but it's going to definitely, businesses are going to grow without having to just keep staffing up people.
Yeah, I
Well, I
often
think it's similar to like cloud, for example. Like when cloud was, as we kind of have these different generational experiences with technology, and cloud was like, oh, the cloud is going to eliminate jobs. And the reality is it didn't. It just changed the need for the types of jobs, right? And so I think that you're going to see that in the same in AI, where AI, keep in mind, AI is not all knowing. AI cannot think of anything new. AI is regurgitating and sometimes hallucinating what we've taught it, right? And so there's going to be new professions that come from this, and also just the professions that are utilizing it today. You still need to have a captain at the ship, right? There's still going to be somebody that's got kind of got the hand on the wheel to be able to watch when that AI starts to hallucinate. So I think ultimately, the fear of like AI is going to take over the world, uh, that's a different conversation for a different day. But for the next couple of years, we're going to see uh, just a kind of a change, a shift in its place.
yeah. Yeah. Well, let's start talking about phase three, kind of this checklist. If you had to distill it down to, okay, what do we actually need to do? What's the big value? What's the big takeaway from this? I think you've already gone through this a little bit, but I wanted to make sure that Andrew, because when you and I were talking about, you were talking about different levels of adoption of AI and sophistication of the business, right? What are they ready to implement versus maybe how are they starting to try it out now? So walk us through this again. Um,
Yeah, if you
Share
actually
a
go back
different
to the first
perspective.
slide, because I think it's important to kind of give the starting point, or not the first slide, but yeah, not the first. There you go. So everybody, like a year ago, we did a webinar on what I call phase one, which is experimentation with AI. So if you haven't watched that, go back and listen to that video. Everyone should be at this phase. If you have not started experimenting with AI, you need to start. It's now
Or as I spell it, experient.
yeah, yeah, it's a new thing. It's a new experience. Um, phase two is define business value. So like that's where Succurri is at, right? We're an advanced technology company. We know a lot about AI, and we're at phase two. So we're defining our business value and spending a lot of time about that. As we're doing that, we're figuring out where our roadblocks are, where our little chaos, roadblocks are, and so we're getting that taken care of. So if you start on phase one, don't delay. Start to dream about what AI can do for your business as you are learning what AI can do. Now, Grant or I or someone like us can help accelerate your knowledge, right? We can sit down with you and talk with you through what AI can do in your business. So there's value there, but ultimately move to phase two. So if you go to the next slide, Succurri is at the threshold of phase three. So we've defined our business objectives. We're going through, we're making sure we know what our goals are. We're figuring out where our processes have holes, and we're working to refine those and get them tightened up. We are looking at our data. Now, data management has always been something for us that's been pretty manageable. So like we've done a good job with data already. Tools, this is where one of our strengths are. We have an internal team that does integrations every day. So like we're really strong in the middle, and that's going to be a competitive advantage for us because we'll hit that like growth curve and we'll have some extra rocket fuel.
Can I pause
People,
you there for a second, Andrew? I
yeah,
think it's worth pointing out that different types of businesses and different niches have different tool sets.
yes,
And the cool thing about you guys, I think that's worth mentioning is that there are a lot of industries where you already understand and have the experience with those tool sets. If architects use a certain type of tool set, engineers, construction companies, those types of, and that fast forwards a lot of this process when you already have that knowledge.
correct. Yes, exactly. And like for Succurri, so our sister company MSP Interfaces has experience doing REST API integrations for almost any system that has a REST API. So it could be manufacturing, it could be your accounting system. We can do HL7 integrations for electronic medical records. That's a unique skill set, right? So, people are going, when they want those integrations, they're going to come to companies like Succurri or MSP interfaces and get those. But having industry specific knowledge is really critical. Training your people, so important, and there is so much value to be obtained out of trained staff. And I've talked about it several times in this webinar, but your staff do the job better, they do it more consistently, and they're way more comfortable, and you just have less burnout because they're confident in their skill set. Security. This has been a long journey for us. Like, we are a creative firm. We love to just try and do. This was, like, I would say, AI out of the gate. Grant and I agreed that we had our foot down on this. There was going to be no AI shenanigans or exploration that wasn't authorized, because we know the cost to fix inappropriately designed systems down the road is astronomical.
Yeah. 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 Well, I'm going to leave it on the screen for a little bit. Grant, is there anything you want to add to this before we get into a little bit of Q&A?
Uh, no, I think we've kind of beat this one pretty good. I'm like ultimately if I was to say you take something away from this, and there's a similar message to every one of our webinars, is if you're thinking about it, you have to start somewhere, right? And so take those baby steps, take that leap of faith, and start dreaming a little bit. And then when you get to a spot where you're like, okay, reach out to a professional, have them help you out to get across that finish line. It's one of those things that if you don't, you'll pay for it twice, right? You'll pay for it the first time, and then you'll pay for it again to have it redone.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's more expensive. And when you're thinking about those little things, sometimes it's hard to get the message across of what are those little things that are happening in your business that are either happening all the time or they're annoyances, right? Those are the easy ones to hit out of the park right out of the gate and provide value. So focus on what those are in your business. I, as an IT professional, can't come in and tell you what those are in your business, right? Those are the questions that I will ask you, and saying, okay, what are the things that happen all the time, right? And then we start looking at which ones can AI actually solve. And then that's where we start saying, okay, these are the ones that we're going to go target. And this is the technology we're going to use to target that. So don't reinvent the wheel. There's a process to be able to get across the finish line. And I highly recommend using a professional, just because honestly, we've made some of those mistakes ourselves, so we know what not to do.
Yeah. 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 So let's jump into Q&A. Do we have any questions out there from anybody?
I see we have one from Mark. And so Mark's question is, he's in the manufacturing industry, and he wants to know what sort of investment he should be expecting for AI in manufacturing. And so, Mark, I'll tell you what I've told so many folks across all kinds of industries is, until you know what the use case is, the investment is going to be really hard to pin down. So, like manufacturing, you have process, you have inventory, you have, actually you're creating product, you're ordering product. Think about those things like Grant just mentioned, little things that take a person to do, or they're repetitive, and they're easily documented and easily reproduced. Those are a great use case for AI. For most businesses, especially the customers we serve in the small to medium sized business market, I would say hold off on any AI investment for a little while. Your manufacturing system, your ERP system vendor, within the next year will likely have some sort of AI module that will really help you. It'll be very inexpensive, if not included in your annual subscription. Like I said, I would hold off. So, like, I'll give you an example. Succurri is looking at our system we're looking to design is probably about $100,000 system, but we've really defined the goals and the outcomes and the return on investment, and it makes it worth it for us. And we don't anticipate that our business system vendor will ever make AI to do what we're going to do, because we have a very specific use case for it. It's really about understanding how your business can benefit from it. I think, Tony, you may have like a little special offer about a phone call if we have any
Yeah, yeah.
questions. So,
I would just say have the conversation. I'm actually going to send this to one
yeah.
of my partners to have, but um, I'll let you guys describe it, what it is.
Yeah, so you get to talk to Grant, and it's he's a $400 an hour billable resource, 25 years of experience, a technology expert and master at all levels. So this is our value that we are providing to any participants of the webinar. Is if you use this QR code, you can schedule a meeting with Grant, and he'll talk with you about how your business can leverage AI and get value. And there's no cost to that meeting.
Yeah, this is so worth it because I think in my experience in talking with Grant, you've always not talked about the technology. You've talked about, well, what's going on in your business? Tell me about why you're thinking about this. It's just valuable to have an ear listen to you that's not inside of your organization that understands this kind of tech, but has your business, um, is thinking about it in a way that's business first.
Mhm.
And okay, well, I'm going to give you an
Well,
honest opinion here. And
and that's the way technology should be driven, right? I mean, business is why technology exists. And I see many cases where the shiny object syndrome comes into gear, and they're like, "Oh, this technology, it's cool. It does all these cool things," and not really having any initiative to figure out what business problem it's solving or how it's going to help you achieve your goals. And so Andrew and I get this. We have these calls all the time where somebody's calling for a very specific technology, and I'm like, "But why? Why?" Like it the business has to define the problem, and then you define the technology around it, right? And
yeah,
that's why I try not to have any technology conversations in these types of events, because ultimately, as a business owner, you don't really care, right? You're looking for outcomes, and that the technology is a secondary part that comes along with that to how you achieve your outcomes.
well, hey, I want to thank everybody, especially you guys. Always informative, valuable conversations we have about this stuff. Um, but go out there, check us out on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe and like it, and check out some other videos out there. Andrew, you mentioned a few that we had done, a year ago on this stuff. Um, we try to make our library valuable from a business standpoint, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of that. We also have all of our YouTube or webinars recorded on our on-demand channel on our website if you want to hit succurri.com. But here's our YouTube channel, and check it out. And thank you guys so much for today.
Thank you. Have a great
Yep, thank
day.
you.